Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sporty's webinar on buying your first airplane. My name's Eric Radke, and I'm serving as your facilitator for the evening. Your presenter, who we'll get to in just a moment, is Charlie Masters. A lot of great content to cover tonight. Before we get into that presentation that we have for you tonight, just a couple of housekeeping items to begin. First of all, we are recording tonight's presentation. So if you have to step away, if there's a point that Charlie talks about that you missed and want to come back to, do keep in mind you'll be able to do that as often as you'd like. We will have the full recording available in the Sporty's webinar archive, which will be available at sportys.com/webinars, the same page you likely used to register for this one. So come back anytime, and again, as often as you like. That'll be up and published in just a couple of days. Also, feel free throughout the presentation to submit any questions you may have via the software. We will kind of pull those questions together, and we have some time set aside at the very end in order to get some of those answered. So we're delighted that you're here with us. Thank you very much for joining us. And with that, I want to welcome Charlie Masters. Charlie serves as Vice President of Sales at Sporty's and Eastern Cincinnati Aviation, which is Sporty's FBO, located in Cincinnati at the Claremont County Airport. Pilot, aircraft owner, knows a lot about the topic that we're going to talk about tonight. And myself, being a longtime pilot, I can't say I have aircraft owner as one of my qualifications, but certainly I've probably, like all pilots, I've certainly been intrigued with the prospect. So Charlie, a quick question for you, I guess, before we get going. What kind of market are we looking at now? Is this kind of a buyer's market in the airplane? Is it better to be selling an airplane right now? Where would you where do the scales tip toward right now in the market?
Well, it's been a buyer's market really since 2008, and the scales may be moving back a little bit as some of that excess inventory gets moved out of the marketing channels and into somebody's hangar. But it's certainly been a good time to be buying an airplane.
Appreciate that insight, and certainly everyone probably understands there's so many moving parts and so many considerations. So Charlie, thanks for your willingness to navigate through this somewhat complex topic. So with that, you have the floor. Take it away.
All righty. Well, thanks, Eric, and welcome everybody to our presentation here tonight. Like I've already been introduced, I want to tell you just a little bit about myself. I live on the farm that I was raised on, and I bring that up because in the tobacco fields and the hay fields of northeastern Kentucky there, every time an airplane would go over, I'd look up and say, someday I want to be a pilot of one of those things. I watch Sky King every Saturday morning, and I've been very fortunate. After I got out of school, I've got right on my pilot's license, and I'm a commercial pilot in both land and seaplanes, and for the past 15 years, I've been working here at Sporty's, Eastern Cincinnati Aviation, the FBO here at Sporty's, as heading up the aircraft sales. And as such, I've facilitated dozens and dozens of airplane sales as both a buyer, seller, and a broker for buyers and sellers. And I've owned an airplane myself. So I'm going to share with y'all what I've learned through the years. And on that first slide, I said maybe your second, third, or fourth airplane, because it seemed like every time that I participate in a sale, I learned something new. So tonight, just give you a little presentation overview. What we're going to kind of look at why you should buy versus why you should rent, how to go about assessing the use of the airplane to serve your needs, determining a model that will best serve your needs, kind of look at the advantages of new versus used airplanes, how you go about finding the airplane once you've kind of settled on what you want. Going to talk about financing and insurance, which is something that needs to be considered early on, and choosing a mechanic, which is another important thing. And then we'll just kind of walk through the purchasing process. So I want to find out something about you all tonight, and got a poll up here, and basically we've got three possible responses. One is I'm going to buy an airplane soon, within the next year, but this time next year I'll have my own trusty airplane. If you're in that category, you'd say 1. 2 is soonish. Like to buy an airplane, but family or business needs are taking a priority right now. And soonish would be more than 1 year. And then you're going to learn tonight that there are things you should be doing even if that airplane purchase is more than a year away. There's some things that you can do to be getting ready right now. And
Charlie,
then the
wonderful.
third cat, go ahead, Larry.
I'm sorry, I was going to say wonderful news as the polling results come in. We don't have any attendees on right now that never plan to own an airplane. The majority is skewing towards soonish. It's about a 60-40 breakdown, soonish versus soon.
Okay. Then number 3, never. You know, if you're in that category, hopefully you'll tune in a ball game or something tonight. You know, but there are people that feels like if it floats or flies that you're better off renting. There's a saltier version of that, Eric, but we won't go into that tonight.
And the poll is closed now, Charlie, so it's all yours.
All righty. So how did it turn out, Eric? About
60-40, skewed towards soonish versus soon.
All right, great. So let's begin this section talking about why someone should buy versus renting an airplane. And certainly renting has some advantages. For one thing, if the airplane you're going to rent is $150 an hour and you go out and you have a trip and it's going to be 3 hours, you know it's going to cost you $450 when you get back. The costs are known and constant. Another nice thing about renting at an FBO like here at Sporty's Academy, we have a variety of airplanes. So you'll have access to maybe a 4-seater and maybe a 6-seater and maybe a 2-seater. So you'd have if you wanted to go up on a Sunday afternoon, just kind of look at the trees or something like that, maybe a 2-seat airplane would be all you need. Whereas if you're going, you know, cross country, 300 or 400 miles, something more capable, and that may be available by renting. Another thing is that you know the aircraft is professionally maintained by the owner of the FBO that you're renting from. You know that the annual's up to date, that the static check is up to date, the ELT batteries, all that thing. You typically, at a well-run FBO, you don't have to worry about stuff like that. And then another advantage for renting is convenience for business accounting. It's pretty easy to decide, well, this trip is for business, and you can deduct the whole thing. You know, if it costs you $450, you say, well, that's $450 charged my business. I don't have to worry about percentages of hangar rent and percentages of insurance and things like that. The renting does have some disadvantages. One is that you lose some spontaneity. The airplane that you want to rent may have to be scheduled days or even weeks ahead to get the one that you want. Sometimes the airplane may not be clean. There's, in the world, unfortunately, there's a rental mentality. And you might show up and see that the airplane looks something like old Dusty Crop Hopper over here. And that may not project the image that you want for yourself or your passengers. Rental airplanes are often equipped with legacy avionics, the simple kind of navcoms that everybody understands: big knob, big numbers, little knob, little numbers, and although some FBOs have some newer glass panels, often rental planes are kind of the old school. And then one thing you may run into with rental is the minimum daily use requirements. It's, you know, the FBO or the flight school is in a business too, and they really can't afford to have you get the airplane, fly it for a half hour, keep it for a week, and then fly it for a half hour back home. So they'll put on those minimum daily use requirements that you have to pay for whether you actually use the airplane or not. Now, not to be too rosy here, buying has some disadvantages, and the first one I think is the expenses are unknown. You can kind of plan for them and budget for them, but if you're out at XYZ airport and your starter goes kapooey on you, you're going to have to be out for a new starter because you're the owner. Also, I don't know whether this is an advantage or disadvantage or not, but as the owner, you're responsible for maintenance. It's your responsibility to make sure the airplane is in annual and make sure that its transponders check is up to date and the static system. So and it's possible that you can buy an airplane and the day after you get it, the government comes out with a very expensive AD. airworthiness directive that you have to comply with to keep that airplane airworthy. So that's just something that it doesn't happen often, but it's something you have to have in the back of your mind. In addition to just the airplane, you have to plan for additional expenses for storage and insurance, taxes, and then upgrades. Then finally, as you're buying, you can spend considerable time and dollars cruising the countryside looking for the airplane of your dreams. That said, there's many, many advantages to owning your own airplane. I think the primary one is that the airplane is there when you need it, when it's your airplane. So if a trip comes up fairly spontaneously, you can go out to the airport and hop in your airplane, pre-flight it, and take off on it. You get an airplane that specifically fills your needs. You get the airplane for your missions. I think there's a safety aspect in owning your own airplane. You know, when you fly an airplane, the same airplane for 50 or 100 hours, you get to where you know where every dial, button, and knob is without having to look. You know what the airplane sounds like. You know what it looks like. If there's something crops up, you know if that's a new problem or if it's one that's been existing for a while. So I think there's a big safety aspect in buying your own airplane. Another thing is the maintenance status is known. You know when it was worked on last and what what was done to it and whether the spark plugs are new or old or all that, but you know it. And then I think an important thing is this pride of ownership. Your airplane becomes a symbol of you and your business. So you can be like Mickey here and just have that pride of ownership, which I think is maybe bigger in our mind than a lot of us will let on. Now there is some middle ground between renting and outright ownership, and one is through a co-ownership or becoming part of a flying club. And this works for many people. As a matter of fact, this is the way that I bought airplanes in the past is find people who's willing to share those expenses with you. Kind of technically, if you have more than 4 owners, the insurance is going to call that a flying club. But again, it's an opportunity for you to share your expenses, especially the fixed costs, by all the owners. And you might say, well, I don't know if what if I want the airplane, another guy wants the airplane? Well, if you kind of figure there's about 16 flying hours in a day, there's potentially over 5,800 flying hours per year. So the chances of conflicts are pretty minimal. In 12 years of co-ownership on our airplane, had one conflict one time, and one of the co-owners, Roseanne, my wife and I, we were planning on going to Myrtle Beach, play some golf over the weekend, and guy called on Thursday night saying that he had an uncle in Florida that was probably not going to make it through the weekend. And of course I told him, I said, hey, Myrtle Beach will be there next weekend or next month or whatever, you go see your uncle. But probably up front you have to agree how conflicts will be handled to make sure there's no hurt feelings. Another kind of middle ground is through the lease back, and a lease back is where you buy an airplane and then you lease it to an FBO or flight school for them to use on their flight line. And there's some advantages here in that it does allow you to recover some of your capital costs. Other people are paying you to fly the airplane. That may make you a business and make the whole airplane tax deductible for you. Kind of the downside is that you lose access to your airplane if you're going to have to get on a schedule like everybody else to that airplane. And although as owner in most situations you can pull the airplane, but you're in a business of renting airplanes now, and you don't want to be looked at from your clientele as being, well, I don't want to rent that guy's airplane because every time I rent it, he pulls it out from underneath of me. And then of course, if the airplane gets flown more and flown by more different people, it's going to be susceptible to some additional wear and tear. So you just have to factor that into the equation as well. So let's say that you've decided to buy an airplane, and we're not going to talk about what airplane to buy yet. We're going to talk about what do you need an airplane for. And on your screen here, you see two different airplanes. Other than the fact that they both have twin engines and they both fly, that's about where the similarities of these two end. This Gulfstream here, it flies at about 90% of the speed of sound, and this Aircam over here, it flies about 90% of the speed of smell. This one has a very important, if you have 10 or 12 people that need to go across the continent or across the ocean for business or pleasure, certainly this is the kind of airplane that you want. But if you want to go over a lake or a river or woods at 200 feet above the treetops, really slow, take pictures and kind of enjoy the scenery, then the Aircam is the airplane for you. So both those airplanes, although they are vastly different, they both have a place and a person that wants to buy them. So as you're assessing the needs, why do I want an airplane? And I think back to Maverick here, you know, he says, our friend Maverick, he says, Goose, I feel the need. And his need was for speed. Well, your needs may be different. You may need more payload or a longer cruising range. And I've put a graph up over here on the side, and it really doesn't matter what, this is going to be dollars up the y-axis, and then across the x-axis down here is going to be utility. And you know, you can buy a lot of utility and the price doesn't go up much, but whenever you get to buying more and more, the price goes up exponentially. And so we have to keep this in mind as we're looking for the, the speed and the payload and the range of our airplane. We can buy one that does about anything. It just may have to require a thicker wallet. So you need, as a potential airplane owner or buyer, to think about, how far do I need to go? How fast we need to go? Do I have the skills to fly this airplane? Will I need additional skills? Will I need to hire a pilot? Do I have the time for the additional training? I've had more than one customer that bought a pretty nice airplane thinking that they were going to fly it, and it wasn't very long before they had hired a pilot because the customer is busy doing whatever the customer did to be successful enough to be able to afford the nice airplane. And found out that he didn't have time to go every year for annual recurrent training and things like that. And that's fine. To have a pilot frees you up a lot. So another factor to consider is, how much useful load do you need? And then I guess the big one though down here is what can we afford? So I've been talking to a couple of guys here in the last just the last few days that are considering buying an airplane, and I got this one fellow here, and he's located in Cincinnati, and he, as part of his business, needs to make monthly trips to Joliet, Illinois, up here in the Chicago area, Montgomery, Alabama, down here, State College, Pennsylvania, Sikeston, Missouri. Now, I don't know what he goes to Sikeston for other than Lambert's Cafe down there, but maybe that's reason enough. And then he goes about once a month over to D.C. And he likes to go to the NASCAR races down in Concord, down in the Charlotte area. He takes a yearly visit he has a timeshare condominium thing out in Las Vegas. He goes out there every year. Most of these trips are less than 400 nautical miles, this outer ring here. His average trip is 320, and we just threw out this Las Vegas deal. He's going to either charter an airplane or go commercial to take care of that Las Vegas trip. After he'll probably fly his airplane out there one time to say that he has, but most of the time that's a pretty, we're probably looking at a full day in most airplanes to get to Las Vegas from Cincinnati. So he's got to consider his useful load, the number of people, the cargo, both weight and dimensions. How heavy is the stuff I'm going to take, and then also will it fit in the airplane? He wants to buy an airplane that he doesn't have to stop for fuel for one of these normal trips, and he usually takes another person. So he figures that about 2 people 400 pounds, 50 gallons of gas is another 300 pounds, and then he has some wares that he takes on his consultant business, and he thinks there's about 50 pounds of that. So he's about 750 pounds. And something that we always have to remember, I think most of us know that's been involved with airplanes for very long, is that the number of seats do not equal people. Very seldom can you put 4 people in a 4-person airplane or 6 people in a 6-place airplane. The seats are there, and if you have some kids and stuff, you can fill them up. But certainly, when you're talking about adults, you need to kind of really assess, how many pounds of people am I taking, not how many people I'm taking. So, kind of looking at his case here, he's going to travel about 3,000 nautical miles a month, and that's quite a bit of traveling. And in the month, you can see that it would range from 25 hours if he buys an airplane going 120 knots to 15 hours with an airplane that does 200 knots. Now, his longest trip is to Montgomery, Alabama, and that's about 800 nautical miles round trip. And note that it would take him 7 hours to do the round trip at 120 knots, and that goes down to 400 hours or 4 hours at 200 knots. And you might say, wow, that's it's going to take him all day just to fly down there and back. Well, if he has an airplane in this neighborhood here, 5 hours, 160 knots, if he spends 2 hours in his meeting down there and another hour going maybe to and from the airport, that's it's basically an 8-hour day, and he can get his work done down there. To give him 2 hours in Montgomery by airlines from Cincinnati, he would have to leave Cincinnati at 8 o'clock in the morning, and he doesn't get back till 11, almost midnight. So even though you might say, well, this takes quite a while to fly down there, it's still a lot better than going down by the airlines. Well, I got another guy. He's retired at a rural airport not too far from Cincinnati here, and he's kind of a weekend fixture at that airport. Everybody knows him, everybody sees him. He spends his weekend there. He only takes local sightseeing flights. He only hauls maybe one passenger, or he goes by himself. So whereas I'm going to move back here a notch, this guy might think about this Piper Malibu here for his business. The retired guy, this Legend Cub here, may serve his purposes just absolutely fine, and probably even better, because he doesn't want to go very fast. He doesn't want to go very high. I think we always have to say, well, what skills do I need to get for the airplane that I want? What ratings do I have, and what do I need to develop? So, certainly the fellow that is thinking about using his airplane in the business, he needs to have his instrument rating. Will the airplane that you buy will require a high performance or a complex endorsement, or in the latter gentleman there, will it require a tailwheel endorsement? Do I want a multi-engine airplane? Well, am I rated for multi-engine? For the guy more interested in the fun part of it, do I want a seaplane? Do I have a seaplane rating? Do I need a type rating? You may be familiar that what the FAA calls large airplanes, if they weigh over 12,500 pounds or they're powered by a jet engine, you have to have a type rating, and that has to be done typically on an annual basis. Recurring training. And do you need some model-specific training? Let's get down, but certainly it's not a type rating. But if you're transitioning from a Piper Archer or a Cessna Skyhawk, and you're going to a Cessna TTX or a Cirrus SR-22, something like that, you want some training in that specific model. They all have their certain little quirks, not bad, not good, just they're all a little bit different, and most of the factories offer model-specific training, and especially their higher performance airplanes. And then you need to really assess, am I willing to take the time to gain and maintain the proficiency I need to fly this airplane, because we don't want to be like Stryker over here and breaking out in a cold sweat every time we think about flying the airplane, because if that's the case, you're going to wind up not flying it. If the airplane scares you, you're just not going to use it. I guess the big one is always how much can I afford? And that can only be determined, you know what that number is. You can only really come up with money like this guy in the picture one time, and you'll probably get caught, and then you won't be able to fly your airplane after that. And remember that the price, the purchase price of the airplane is only the cost of admission. You've got the direct operating costs, which you can think of as gas, oil, and tires, maintenance costs, reserves for engines and avionics, debt service. If you borrow money, you're going to have to pay interest, and then there's taxes and fees that you're going to run into as part of your ownership. Two things: do not buy more than you can afford. If you do, you're not going to be able to afford to put gas in it, and it's going to sit in a hangar and not do anybody any good. But on the other hand, do not buy less than you need. The fellow that's going to Montgomery, Alabama, and he's wanting to rely on that once a month to get down there and go to State College, Pennsylvania, and Joliet, that Legend Cub is not the airplane for him. He may be able to afford it, but it will never serve his purposes. And so make sure you buy an airplane, and if you can't afford it yet, just wait till you get your finances in order to where you can buy the airplane that you need. So we talked here for almost a half hour, and I haven't mentioned once about what airplane you should buy. And there's certainly all kinds of airplanes made by, and I've got several here. We've got from Mooney's to Legend and Cub Crafters to Boeing business jets, and all those fall in the GA world, and they all have a place. And so we need to figure out what it is that's going to serve our purposes. Well, as you begin to look at what to buy, you're going to fill out a form on a website somewhere, and somebody like me is going to pick up on that, and they're going to contact you to try to sell you an airplane. It's their job, and it's the seller's responsibility to make whatever airplane that they have fit your needs, or make you think it fits your needs. And they're going to do this, the 5 Ps here. They're going to do it with pictures, really glossy, nice pictures, going to show all the good features of the airplane while conveniently not showing any of its warts. They're going to use print media. They're going to have talk about how fast it goes and how little fuel it burns, and there's going to be pictures in the brochure of very attractive people sitting in the airplane with big smiles on their faces. So you just know that if you buy that airplane, that you're going to automatically become that attractive and have that big smile on your face. And then the seller is going to have a pitch, like this guy here. This is a guy that thinks every airplane ought to have a parachute on it, and he's going to pound that down, that this is what you need. This will serve your purposes. Then the seller, he has to make the price attractive. And then the next thing that the seller's doing is promotions. And a promotion is something to make you go ahead and make the decision to buy their airplane in a short amount of time. So they'll say, hey, I'll give you this price, but it's only good through AirVenture at Oshkosh, and after that promotion goes away. So what he's really wanting you to do is to make a decision, force a decision, before you have a chance to think about what else it is that you might need. Now, your responsibility as a purchaser is to make sure that the airplane fills your needs, that it has the payload that will carry what you need to carry, goes the speed that you need to go. And remember, you can buy any speed you want. This isn't like driving a car where there's a speed limit. It's just if your billfold's big enough, you can about go as fast as you can imagine. One that fits your ability to fly, has a purchase price that you can afford and operating costs. And I brought this up here. This is if you're not familiar with it, this is a twin Bonanza. Very capable airplane, goes reasonably fast. You can tell it's a twin retractable gear. It's got a cavernous cockpit. You can just put anything in there. The only and reasonably priced. We can buy these things all day long for somewhere between $50,000 and $80,000. The rub comes with these geared, supercharged Lycoming engines that require a fair amount of maintenance to keep them going and a fair amount of fuel to get the power out of them. So I've seen this happen to a lot of potential purchasers. They find the twin bow's kind of rare, but they find the Seneca or the Baron or something like that, and they say, oh man, I can get a twin for $125,000. Certainly you can, but again, that's just the price of admission. And it may be that may be exactly the airplane you need, but keep in mind it's to fill your need, not the seller's need. So you need to determine the maximum that you can pay after all the improvement, including searching for the airplane, the travel, the pre-buy inspection, something that fits your operating budget, and then you can determine what model suits you best. Now, I had the twin Bonanza on one side, and on the other end, we've got this airplane here, and certainly it probably doesn't cost very much to buy. It doesn't cost next to nothing to fly this thing. It just sips on the fuel. But again, don't let price be everything. Make sure you buy the airplane that fulfills your needs. So there's always a question of new versus used, and again, this is something that you're going to have to sort out for yourself. And certainly new airplanes have some remarkable advantages. There's a known history. It doesn't have a history. It's brand new. It's just out of the factory. They'll come with a warranty, so you'll know that there's not going to be an expensive AD that crops up in the next 2 or 3 weeks that you'll have to take care of. It's in a known condition. You know the service bulletins have been taken care of, and any airworthiness directives have been cared for. I can tell you from experience, new aircraft salesmen are very happy for you to take a test drive, a demonstration flight in their airplane, so you get to actually fly the airplane. New aircraft is going to have the latest and greatest in all the accessories. Most new airplanes, certainly the established aircraft manufacturers, will have some sort of factory training program where they'll get you acclimated to that airplane so you can get the utility out of it. And the new aircraft come with a pretty established price. A new aircraft dealer may be able to deal just a little bit, but the margins aren't great on new aircraft for the dealer. So don't expect them to come off very much. The disadvantages is the higher price. New airplanes are going to cost more than used airplanes, and a greater depreciation. And I'm not talking about the tax depreciation, but the actual physical depreciation of the airplane. It's going to be worth about 80% this year or next year what it was this year, and then the year following that, probably 90% of that number, and the year following that about 90% again. Another disadvantage, depends on how you look at it, is most new aircraft now have a pre-packaged avionics in them. For example, you can get a Cessna Turbo 206 with any avionics you want as long as it's G1000. And that's, most new airplanes have gone with some sort of glass panel avionics. And if that's what you want, that's fine, but if it's not, then you're kind of stuck with it. Now, the used airplanes have some distinct advantages as well, and the first one I think most of us think about is the price. Used is going to be less than a new one. They may already be depreciated. Again, I'm not talking about the tax depreciation. What I'm talking about here is just the physical depreciation. If you buy a well-maintained Skylane for $75,000 this year, it's probably going to be worth $75,000 next year, and the year after that, year after that, year after that, because it's already been depreciated out. as far as, again, the physical depreciation, not the tax depreciation. Speaking of Skylanes, maybe the model may no longer be available as a new airplane. Cessna has, they're allegedly they're going to start selling them again here in August, or maybe at AirVenture, but for the past 3 years there hasn't been Skylanes available new. And then I've listed this on both sides. When you're buying used airplanes from someone, there's more of a possibility of horse trading. There may be the seller may be willing to concede more in order to get the airplane sold. Also, I've been in on deals where there were RVs involved, boats involved, where you know, people were wanting to get rid of a boat, wanting to buy an airplane, or vice versa, and so there's a possibility of horse trading, which can be an advantage. Big disadvantage in used airplanes, I've got history there, and I've got a question mark after it. And the reason I say that is all of them have a history. And you know, we can go on what the owner says, but you know, an airplane that's maybe had 5 owners, we don't really know what happened 30, 40 years ago. Even if it has complete logbooks, we don't really know that everything was logged. Used airplanes typically have the legacy avionics, the typical nav comms, and maybe a panel mounted 496 or something like that. They may have that on an air gizmo or whatnot, but typically, you know, you're not going to see the latest avionics. You may have to find, you may wind up traveling, and I speak from experience here. I have traveled hundreds of miles to look at airplanes that were allegedly in great shape, and when they open up the hangar door to look at the airplane, I say, oh, hey, mister, that's an interesting airplane. Now, where's the one you were telling me about on the phone? So just, you know, have it in your mindset to be surprised if the airplane turns out to be as great as you thought it was going to be before you go look at it, and rather than being horribly disappointed if it's not. Again, you know, I put horse trading as a disadvantage. Some people don't like horse trading. Some people say, I just want to know how much it is, and I'll write a check. So it depends on whether you're which side of the barter system you're on. And then another disadvantage is most used airplanes do not come with any sort of warranty. And even if the guy says, I guarantee you that airplane's going to be good, you know, what's he backing that up with? Just fooling, folks. We're going to keep on going. Next, we're going to talk about how to go about finding the airplane that you're looking for, that you need. And fortunately, there's some trade publications that exist just for this very purpose. You're probably all familiar with Controller and the yellow Trade a Plane, or maybe the Aviator's Hotline. You'll see those publications laying around almost every airport, and you can subscribe to them. Most of them have online versions that are free and completely up to date. There's some publications that are online only, like Barnstormers and Global Air, and there are many others. If you just Google airplanes for sale, you're going to find several sites. But don't overlook local. Go out to your airport and look at the bulletin board and see if there's an airplane for sale on it that might just be the airplane that you need. Also, don't be afraid to ask around the line guys or the airport manager. If somebody's got an airplane for sale, on the airport, they likely know about it, and they know something about the condition of it. Another thing you can do is just stroll around the ramp. You may come across like this Citabria here. It's got a for sale banner on its prop. You can kind of figure it's for sale, and there's contact information right here in the window. Kind of shameless self-promotion here. You may want to contact a broker or a dealer. They can do some of quite a bit of this work for you, and the ones that have been around for a while, it won't be their first rodeo, their first squirrel hunt, and they'll know a good deal when they see it, and they'll know a bad deal when they see it. Next thing you can do is just start traveling, and a place that you can travel coming up here is up to an air show and flying, like up at Oshkosh, up at AirVenture. And up there you will see airplanes of all models, all makes, all conditions. And when you find one that you might be interested in, talk to the owner, but don't ask him, say, how do you like your airplane? Because we all love our airplanes. What you really want to find out is things like, remember I said that the seller, he'll have the brochures, the print media and stuff telling you about how fast the airplane goes and how high it flies and how much fuel it burns. If you see somebody, and let's say you're interested in a Piper Arrow, you find an Arrow owner and you ask him, say, hey, what's your airplane cruise? What kind of cruise do you get out of your airplane? And how much fuel does it burn? And those are, because that's what you really want to know is what are these airplanes actually like for the owner before you invest the big check and find out on your own. Type clubs. If you get it narrowed down and you've got a few airplanes that you're looking to fulfill your needs, chances are there's a type club that knows a lot about those airplanes. Whether it's like the Seaplane Pilots Association, the Bonanza Society, Cessna Pilots, Luscombe Owners, Cherokee Pilots, also AOPA and EAA. Talk to those people. They have technical service people that know the airplanes and will give you an honest assessment. I mean, the Cessna pilot guy is pretty big on Cessna airplanes. He'll tell you that the Beechcraft is made by the devil himself, because when God made birds, he put the wings on top, and so the Beeches have the wings on the bottom, so it must be made by the devil. So, but they know their airplanes, and they'll give you an honest assessment. I know folks from both. I'm picking on them because I know people from both those organizations, and they will give you a good, honest opinion about it. Also, when you join a type club, they'll give you access to their message boards, where you'll see members typing on the message board, talking about their experience with the airplane, and you'll see for sale postings there. Might be the airplane that you're looking. Well, before we get too deep into it, we need to talk about a little bit about financing and insuring the airplane. Aircraft financing is like nothing your banker has probably seen before. We've got perfectly good airplanes out there we can buy for $8,000, or you can spend $80 million on a Boeing business jet. So there's a broad range, and most local bankers lack knowledge of airplanes and aircraft value. Like houses, airplanes need maintenance to maintain their value, and most bankers don't have any idea about how to assess the value of an airplane. And then they may have been at some seminar sometime and remember hearing something about the liens aren't recorded at the county courthouse. They're recorded out at the aircraft registration branch at Oklahoma City, and they don't know how to do that, and so they may not be interested in financing the airplane for you, but they might be. What I'm seeing right now is terms in aircraft financing ranging from 5 to 20 years. Current rates are around 5 point something, between 5.2 and 5.99 on good risks. You need to probably think about putting up 20% of whatever it is, the value of the airplane. It's going to be 20% yours. And if you're working with one way to work with your local bank, and this is what we've done with my co-owners on our airplane, is we put up other collateral. The bank really didn't want to fiddle with filing a lien and stuff like that, so we put up other collateral to get the loan at the local bank with our local banker, people we knew. But dealt with several aviation financing companies. These guys know what they're doing and what they're talking about. Like the ones that I have up here, Airfleet Capital, NAFCO, AOPA, DOR, and there are others. They aren't banks themselves, but they broker money from banks, and they know which bank is apt to be a good fit for you and the airplane. They understand airplanes, and they know about. They're kind of a good resource to say, that seems like a reasonable amount of money to be spending for that airplane. Now, what are you going to need? What you should be getting together right now is an application, and most of these guys in the aircraft financing world, they'll take anybody's application because they all ask for the same, pretty much the same information. You're going to need to develop your own personal financial statement with the statements to back that up from your bank accounts and your brokerage statements and whatnot. You'll need 2 years federal tax returns, the complete returns, all the schedules, W-2s, K-1s, because we pay accountants and we pay bookkeepers and we pay tax preparers to make our income as meager as possible as the government will accept. And now we're trying to show how much money that we're making, so we'll be considered a good risk. So that's why they're going to require all those schedules. They'll ask for a current pay stub or maybe a couple of months of pay stubs, and then when you're ready, they'll ask for the aircraft specification sheet that's going to let them know what airplane that they are actually financing. Insurance, I'm going to bring that up. You know what insurance is? It's to share the risks. Insurance, airplane insurance is not required by law. Like we have to have an insurance policy on our car to drive our car. Well, it's not required by law. But typically, if you borrow money, you're going to have the airplane insured. Now, you may have an insurance agent that you've dealt with, but if they're not familiar with the aviation market, you need to find a quality aviation broker like Parrish O'Neill here, and they'll assist your regular insurance provider, because in the airplane insurance world, there's about 20 underwriters, and notice none of them over here are things like Progressive or Geico or State Farm. It's a specialty market, and an aviation insurance broker will know which one of those companies might be interested in your airplane at a good price. There's two parts to your insurance. One is the hull insurance. That's going to insure the airplane. It's kind of like collision with your car insurance. You want to make sure that you insure no more than the aircraft's value, because if something happens to the airplane, if the hangar falls down on it or it catches on fire or whatever, they're not going to pay you any more than the airplane is worth. So you don't want to be paying any extra premium. And then there's going to be a liability insurance component, which it's pretty common to start out with $1,100,000 of liability insurance, where it's $1 million total and $100,000 per person. And then what you're wanting to move to, though, is what we call smooth limits, where it's just $1 million, and if there's just one person involved, they would get the possibility of settlement of the whole $1 million. If you think you need additional insurance, maybe your companies may have an umbrella insurance or something like that we can put additional insurance on top. But typically, most insurance with normal kind of airplanes, you're looking starting out with that $1,100,000. Before you get too deep in it, you need to think about finding a mechanic. A mechanic is going to be one that's going to take care of your airplane. You want to make sure that they're properly licensed, that they're an A&P. Hopefully they have IA inspector authorization. That way they can sign off the annuals. They need to be available to you, fairly local. That doesn't mean they have to be at your airport, but they need to be able to come to you. If your airplane doesn't start, they need to be able to get to you. You want to make sure that they're good, but you want to make sure that they have time for another customer. When you need them, you need them. And so many of the good aircraft mechanics are booked up. They need to be affordable, knowledgeable, familiar with the model that you're thinking about buying. For example, I'm going to throw a weird one out here, like a Blanca Viking, very capable, high-performance airplane. It's got wooden wings. So, you want a mechanic that has some knowledge of dealing with wood. And again, the Type Club may be a good spot to find a local mechanic. Those guys know who the mechanics are around the countryside. So we're going to move into the purchasing process. And if you decide to go it alone, if you're not going to contact a broker or a dealer, you found an airplane in the trade publications, hopefully more than one. that'll fulfill your needs. So you call the guy up or email him, you know, is your 78 bug smasher still available? And he's either going to say yes or no. And if he says yes, what you want him to do is send you a specification sheet with all the equipment. That means every radio, what goes with the airplane, what doesn't. For example, just, you know, he's got these sheepskin seat covers. It needs to be known whether those goes with the airplane or not. Um, uh, like this portable Garmin here, does that go with the airplane or not? You're going to ask the person to take several pictures. With email, this works out really great. You want pictures of the wings, control surfaces, because hail damage is going to show up on control surfaces first. Horizontal and vertical stabilizers underneath the airplane. See if it's like had antennas scraped off of it from a gear up landing or something like that. Look at the cowl and the wheel pants. These are typically composite parts, and see how badly, if they're cracked or what kind of shape they're in. You want a picture of the panels close enough that you can identify all the radios, and you want a picture of all the seats to see how worn they are, and then a picture of the floor for the same reason. Next is you need to, in your own mind, establish a reasonable price range. And there's some, you can do that in the trade publications. You can, you know, see what people are asking for a particular airplane. There's some books that are available. This VREF has both a book form, and it's also available online through the AOPA. But you need to know how to make adjustments. They're going to give you an average, and you know the old saying, average, if I have 1 foot in the freezer and 1 foot in the stove, on average I should be comfortable. Well, especially when you're talking about airplanes that are, you know, 30, 40, 50 years old, you're going to have a wide range of possible values. So you need to know how to make adjustments for the damage history, the paint in the interior, the equipment that's on the airplane, the airframe hours and the engine hours. Also, you want to need to keep up with what kind of overhaul did it have here? Was it a factory overhaul or a shade tree overhaul? Like I said, a knowledgeable broker or dealer can help you with that, as well as the type clubs. And then your mechanic will have an idea of what things are worth as well. You want to get a PDF emailed to you of all the logs and see if there's any gaps in the airplane's history, if there's any damage history, how severe it was, or how long ago it was. Typically, if it was, you know, kind of minor hanger rash and stuff, doesn't count too much. But if certainly if the airplane was in something where it lost a wing or something like that, you'll want to know about that and who repaired it and how long ago. Also, through the logs, we can find out if the airworthiness directives are any of those are outstanding, and any service bulletins that you want attended to. And you got to be very careful of high-time airplanes, but also low-time airplanes. It's hard on equipment to have it just sit in the hangar season after season. So you found an airplane, you're going to go visit the airplane. Well, give yourself plenty of time to evaluate the airplane. Don't fall in love with first sight. You know, one of the things, go back to that high wing, low wing thing, you know, we call that ramp appeal. How's the airplane look to us? And you can't discount ramp appeal. That's the way most of us chose our spouses. You know, the first time we saw them, we said, I like that person. But don't fall in love with the airplane yet. Look at the airplane and say, this is the pictures this person sent me represent this airplane, or was he taking pictures of some other airplane? Look at the paint and the seats and the floors. Be wary of fresh paint. They may be covering up something like corrosion that soon after you own the airplane, that fresh paint will fall off and the corrosion will be there. Composites, if it's a composite airplane, composites are very, they have problems with ultraviolet light, and they need a coat of paint on them. So if you see, like along the wing, the leading edge of the wing where they've flown through a lot of rain and stuff, if the paint's missing on a composite airplane, be very wary of that and make sure a mechanic checks it out that there hasn't been some bad decomposition of that composite. You want to check the engine, the baffles, and the seals just to make sure everything looks good and that there's nothing leaking out of the airplane. And then do this, and I'm speaking from experience here. Make sure all the logbooks, the registration in the airplane, the airworthiness certificate, and the data plate, both for the airframe and the engine, match the documents that you have. During your test flight, if you have a chance to fly the airplane, turn everything on. Check it all out. Even turn on the heater, even if it's in the summertime. Check all the power plugs, the cigarette lighter adapters, the intercom outlets. Make sure the controls are correct and tight. If you're buying the airplane from a private individual, he may not really want you to take off and land the airplane, but he certainly should let you handle the airplane in cruise flight. You're going to listen for any unusual noises or vibrations. Take as many notes as you can, and the nice thing about cell phones these days, they all got a camera on them. Take pictures of power settings and cruise speeds and all those things, so you'll be able to remember it later. We decide that we want the airplane. We need to make sure that we have a purchase contract. In this contract, we're going to spell out the price, complete list of all the equipment and accessories. Remember, I said from the get-go that you needed a list of the equipment that came with the airplane. We're going to talk about deposit and whether we're going to have an escrow account. Who's going to do a pre-purchase inspection? If a person will not consent to a pre-purchase inspection, I would advise you to run. Don't walk away from the deal. If they won't, and during the pre-purchase inspection, we're going to determine that the airplane is either airworthy or it's being sold as is. If it's as is, if it's not an airplane, if it's not an airworthy airplane, well, it's worth whatever 1,200 pounds of pop cans would be worth. And then how are we going to handle contingencies during the pre-purchase inspection? If something's found wrong, how's that going to be fixed? And then we also wanted to cover, where the delivery is going to be made and when. Talked a little bit about the pre-purchase inspection. It's there to establish that the airplane is airworthy. The mechanic should conduct a completed inspection of the airplane and the logbooks. Usually, we're not going to be concerned with cosmetics. You should be able to see that yourself. If there's some paint missing and things like that, you don't need a mechanic to tell you that. And you should have it known up front that the seller is going to address any airworthiness squawks. While he's in it, you may as well get an annual inspection after they complete the pre-purchase inspection. They've already got the airplane open, and you'll know when your annual's due. It'll be a year after you bought the airplane. We mentioned that the liens and title is recorded at the aircraft registration branch out in Oklahoma City. You want to make sure, you want to do a title search and make sure the guy that owns the airplane actually owns the airplane. Sporties has made this easy for you. You can go and on one of these links and either get a title search to make sure that the owner of the aircraft is who he says he is, and you can also buy title insurance. Sometimes these airplanes that's had 5 or 6 owners, maybe it's rare and it happens very seldom, but maybe back 3 owners ago somebody gave a bill of sale for that airplane. They weren't really entitled to do it. I like to use escrow accounts. AIC can also handle the escrow account, and basically this is really handy if you and the seller are separated by some distance. The escrow keeps the purchase contractor and make sure that you as the buyer is doing everything you're supposed to do. In other words, you're getting the money into the escrow account, and make sure that the seller has title to the airplane and he has turned in his bill of sale, and they will also file all those documents with the FAA after you close the sale. Speaking of the documents that's required, you need a bill of sale from the seller. One thing, it's sometimes people don't want to talk about how much they actually paid for the airplane. Up here in the where it says for consideration, you can put $1 and OVC, that stands for other valuable consideration, even if you paid $40 million for the airplane. Make sure that when they fill out the bill of sale that your name and address is correct the way you want it. Make sure that the seller signs it exactly as his name or her name appears on the registration. Then you'll need to fill out an 8051. This is the aircraft registration application, and this has to be done on the official FAA form. You can get it from your FSDO. Most FBOs have some copies. uh, they're around. The white copy gets sent in. Again, make sure you fill it out exactly the way that you want it, your name and address to appear on the title. And then the pink copy is kept by you in the airplane as a temporary registration. On that 8051, you're going to have to declare what kind of ownership you have. Most people are either individuals or co-owners. Most people aren't partnership. You say, oh, I'm partnered with an airplane. Be careful. That sometimes indicates a joint liability with the other person. Most of us are co-owners. Flying clubs generally incorporated some sort of LLC. Another document you may need if you live in one of these states is you may have a state registration that you need to fill out. And Virginia, Alaska, and Utah, if you're lucky enough to live in one of those states, they make you pay a registration fee and also personal property taxes. So we've got all the papers filled out and they're where they belong. You want to make sure all the required repairs have been made, that if there's any warranty that it's spelled out, that you have the airworthiness certificate, weight and balance, POH, owner's manual, inventory all the accessories, get the logbooks, get all the keys, authorize the escrow to release the funds, and then go out and fly, because now you're an airplane owner. Congratulations. And that concludes about what I know. Do we have any questions?
Charlie, I appreciate that. Yeah, we have a few kind of broad topics that have come up, and none of these maybe are all that specific, but they're topics that perhaps you would be able to comment on. The first one being about liquidity of an airplane. So there's definitely some that have clearly have reservations about jumping into airplane ownership for fear that it's an asset that they just won't be able to turn or turn quickly if the circumstances call for it. So can you speak to the topic of airplane liquidity and if that is should be a serious concern for all of us?
Well, certainly an airplane is a commodity, and a commodity will always trade at a price. And if you're careful about buying the airplane, then you shouldn't be in a position, you know, if you buy a $100,000 airplane that's worth $100,000, then you'll probably get pretty close to $100,000 when it's time to go sell. Certainly, there are better times of the year to sell an airplane than others. Spring, when people are starting to fly, is better than you know, December or January when the days are only you know, 7 hours long. But typically there's an airplane trade out there, and certainly if you have the airplane priced right, and again, I'm a little, you know, shameless self-promotion here. If you don't have the time or the inclination to deal with a lot of people, a lot of tire kickers, you know, enlist a broker to help you sell your airplane, and it'll probably move.
Charlie, thanks for that. Another question is, and we all know aircraft like this, we're likely to come upon maybe some airplanes that have been sitting in a hangar, haven't maybe flown or flown very little in a number of years. And typically, you know, airplanes are healthier and happier if they're flown on at least some regular basis. So what extra concerns might there be with an airplane that say has logged maybe 5 hours in the last 5 years?
Yeah, that's if it's set outside, if it's been outside on a tie down, there's some definite places to be concerned about as far as corrosion. If it's been inside, if it's been hangared, I think you would be wise to kind of figure that this airplane is going to need an engine overhaul. Especially Lycoming engines, the way the cam sits, it doesn't get oil on it during periods of inactivity, and so if it costs, you know, $25,000 to overhaul a 4-cylinder Lycoming engine, I would just factor that into the purchase price and say, you know, maybe I'll make it a year or two, but I'm thinking I'm going to have to, you know, fork up $20,000 or more on an engine overhaul, and I'm going to put that in on my bid. And people, the person that you're buying it from, they likely know that the airplane's been sitting for a while, and they're going to, you know, they're going to say, hey, look here, it's got low time. But you say, yeah, it's got low time. It's probably got a lot of rust in the engine too.
Okay, thanks for that. Charlie, related to avionics, so can you, I guess, give a clear indication, is it better from an avionics perspective, which can vary a great deal from in the used airplane market, is it better to look for the kind of avionics suite, a premium avionics suite, or is it better to look for something that may be in need of upgrade, and go ahead, would it be more economical to do the avionics upgrade yourself versus looking for something a little more modern?
Well, that's that's kind of up to you. Um, the thing about it is avionics is going to depreciate like anything else does. So a new radio, a brand new radio, is probably going to be worth about 80% next year what it was this year, even though it works and it's fine. Avionics is going to depreciate just like a brand new airplane would. So you may be able to take advantage of maybe not the cutting edge, but I'm just going to throw out something here, like maybe an airplane that's got an Aspen PFD and two Garmin 430Ws, and get that uh, more economically than you could afford to put in, a glass panel and then, two 650s or something like that yourself.
Sure. Charlie, one last question, and we appreciate everyone sticking with us this evening, just a bit over the time, but is there an industry benchmark for brokerage services? What if somebody wanted to avail themselves of the expertise of a broker, what should they expect to pay for that?
Well, it's going to vary with the airplane. Certainly, the broker's time is worth something. His phone and or her phone and her work. And so, for example, if you're out looking for a $50,000 Archer or Skyhawk or something like that, the broker may think he needs 10 to 12% of that. Whereas, if you're at the 200,000 or $500,000 airplane, the percentage may go down. But the broker has to be paid for his time or her time, or the other option you can do is come up with a flat rate uh, for participating in the sale, and then agree to pay for the travel expenses and whatnot of the broker.
Charlie, what an education, kind of from start to finish in terms of the entire process. I know I feel like I just understand the entire process a lot more. I think that goes for probably our entire audience. With that, I just want a reminder for everyone still on with us that we did record the entire presentation. So again, check back with us at sporties.com/webinars. You'll be able to view the entire presentation as often as you can. Also, as Charlie mentioned during the presentation, we're just a week and a half away from the greatest aviation show on earth, that being AirVenture Oshkosh at Whitman Regional Airport in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Sporties will be there in a big way. We'll be in tent location 260, just outside of Hangar B. So by all means, stop by and see us. Charlie will be on hand. I will personally be on hand as well. If you're in the area, we'd sure love to talk to you. And in terms of upcoming webinars, let me make mention that we're just 3 weeks away from our next webinar presentation that does relate to our topic tonight. It's on aviation headsets. So if you're shopping for a new airplane or in the market, certainly probably very close behind that, you may be looking for some new headsets, and you'd probably be surprised at all the new accessories and all the new features that are included with aviation headsets these days. So that'll be on Thursday, the evening of Thursday, July 30th. Aviation headsets, you can sign up at sporties.com.